Hi, and welcome to School of Addiction. Classes in session. I'm going live. My name is Ashley Bloxham. I am an addictions counsellor. I also specialise in trauma and childhood and pretty much a lot of stuff. I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to counselling. My hair is going crazy. I've also overcame addiction, and I've also dealt with a lot of loved ones who have addiction. So I have a 360 degree view of it. I've studied it immensely. I've got 2 degrees in counselling, but I specialised in addiction in one of those, and I've also got a master's in addiction, and I was doing my PhD in addiction. So yeah, I've got a lot of knowledge around addiction, and I'd like to support people. So every day at 10:10, though I was a little bit late today, I am going live. And if anyone wants to join, I'm just going to be answering some questions. But I also try and think of a topic to start off with when I'm rambling by myself. And today I've been thinking a lot about attachment styles. And how that interlinks with addiction, and how we can improve attachment styles to help us in our recovery journey. So I'll first of all just give a quick outline of attachment styles, and then I'm going to talk about how it relates into addiction. And everybody has an attachment style, so whoever you are, this will be relevant. But an outline of attachment styles is that we have secure attachment styles and insecure attachment styles. And what determines an attachment style is the relationship we have with our parents. Now, an attachment style is how we relate to other people. So how do we attach to other people? And all the attachments we have in our connections, whether that's friendships or, romantic relationships, how we attach to each other in those connections is rooted in the attachment we had to our caregivers growing up. So why is this? I'll explain a little bit more as well about the 2 different types of attachment styles. So we've got secure attachment, and that's where we feel very secure in our relationships with our caregivers. And then when we grow up, we feel very secure in ourselves, and we feel very secure in relationships, platonic or romantic. And if we have an insecure attachment, maybe we can be quite avoidant. So we could avoid intimacy and keep people at arm's length because we're scared they're going to hurt us. This is all subconscious. Or maybe we have an anxious attachment style where we feel like we've got to lose ourselves in the process and chase this person down and people please, and we get very fearful of abandonment. So it makes us act in ways which are quite damaging. Now, why am I talking about attachment styles and addiction? So one of the things that I discovered during doing my many years of studying is that often when we have say drug or alcohol addiction, or maybe it's addiction to gambling, porn, whatever it is we don't feel fully able to connect with people around us. We feel disconnected. So instead what happens is we attach to something that feels safe, that makes us feel a sense of joy and happiness or relief or something, and that often is some kind of an addiction. And also what you might find is maybe there's somebody who has an alcohol addiction and they're more confident in group settings, so it can help us attach to people because it helps us feel more comfortable in those attachments. And often you have relationships where they're built on a buzz, and that's because that's helping minimize the attachment. So the reason why I'm talking about it is if you have had an attachment to alcohol or drugs, it can be helpful to look at what your attachment style is and to go look back to your childhood. Because often with addiction, there's clues in our childhood. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but often childhood is a very good place to start. And you hear about people who have and myself included, where you get sober for a bit or you get away from the addiction for a bit, but then what happens is you end up thinking, well, actually, I still feel rubbish. Hi, Katja. So I feel rubbish when I'm in the addiction, but then I get out of it and I'm like, well, I still feel rubbish. Like I still feel like I just don't want to be inside my own skin. I feel uncomfortable in my own skin. And that's because there's healing to be done, and unless we do that healing, unless we learn to love ourselves and we learn to, explore ourselves, explore what's driving the addiction, we're in a position where actually the addiction's probably more helpful than not being in the addiction, or it's just as bad. We're still feeling uncomfortable. It's like, which is the lesser of two evils? So this is why often what you have is people might get sober for a certain amount of time and then they end up slipping up. And this, again, to take this further, might be we might get sober or might stop with the addiction, and because I know sober often talks about alcohol or drugs, but just any addiction, we might like remove the addiction and we might be doing great, but it could be because of external things. And these as soon as one of these external things disappear, like say for instance we'll get into a healthy relationship, but as soon as the relationship goes bad, we're straight back to the addictive behavior. Or maybe we get a new job, or maybe we're doing exercise, but then we have an injury, whatever it is, and then we end up going back to the addiction. And I think part of that is because it's an inside job. We need to go within and heal whatever's causing the addiction. Hi, what's YOUTAWT mean? Oh, you twat. Is that when I say you twat? Have you spelt it wrong? Are you being a twat and spelt it wrong, or does it mean something different? Funny. I'm joking, by the way, but yeah, I don't know if you're saying you twat or if that sounds you've done it the wrong way and it's meant to say something else. Ricky, hello. And hello, Katja. So yeah, childhood is a really good place to start with addiction. And I think it's really important that when we come out of addiction, that we realize, okay, the addiction was there for a reason. We're self-medicating, and just try and explore what it is that the addiction was helping with. Explore its purpose. And this is where I always say addiction's the solution, not the problem, because sometimes what we do is we think we've got to heal the addiction, but it's actually we've got to heal whatever's driving the addiction, I would say. If anybody's in recovery or has any questions or in active addiction, feel free to ask us something. Hi, Cameron. Nice to see you too. Yeah, it's quite nice. I've got a few more people than usual, which is nice. Yeah, if addiction is then the substitute. Yeah, it's more of a Gabor Mate. I don't know if you've heard of him, possibly because he's huge in the addiction field, but he always says his mantra is don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. So it's not necessarily a substitute, but more I would frame it as a way to soothe pain. So it's a form of self-medication. It's a way of, if maybe it started, so for me, my drug addiction started because I felt deeply insecure, but I found that when I took drugs, I felt like I could connect with people better. I felt like I could be more myself. I felt like I was funnier and I was more me. And actually it was just like when I wasn't under the influence, I just felt really shameful, really insecure, didn't feel good enough, wouldn't dare crack a joke, wouldn't dare speak out in groups because I just felt so insecure, and that just stemmed back to childhood. So I was kind of self-medicating this feeling of not being good enough. I was also self-medicating a lot of trauma as well. There's trauma which it can soothe that pain, and also I had mental health disorders, which definitely made us more susceptible. So yeah, I get what you mean though by the substitute. but what I would say is we need to substitute the addiction for something, and often, unfortunately, that is healing. And healing isn't for the faint-hearted, but neither's addiction. So, at least one, you can grow and you can become something that's somebody who you start to day by day feel like you enjoy. Whereas with addiction, you just start to loathe yourself. Let's be real. Welcome to YouTube. Life is good looking for good looking. Thank you. I'll take that. First Dan. I don't know what you mean by first Dan. Let me know. Yeah. Jay, I have no idea about this stuff. It's interesting to hear. I touch wood, have never had advice or needed one. That's quite interesting. It's nice that you're saying that you're enjoying listening to it. I guess, like, what, if you don't have advice, I'm quite interested to know, like, what kind of life do you have? Because I think often the opposite of addiction is having secure connections, being secure in ourselves, having things that we enjoy to do, having solid relationships, whether that's friendship, with our family, romantic. I think, like, so it's good to see the other side, like, why are people not having vices? So I smoke weed to suppress my HD. It works, to be honest. What's HD stand for? What if I have an addiction to farts? I feel like we all do that. We've all got compulsory farts, haven't we? I'm Indian. Oh, nice to meet you. From India. Yeah. Oh, ADHD. Yeah, so that is so common. That was a big part of my my addiction as well, was I have ADHD. And the thing with ADHD is you don't produce enough dopamine, and the reason why it's not the thing itself we're addicted to. Like Luna might be addicted to farts, if we believe that. But it's not the fart she's addicted to, or it's not the drug that someone's addicted to, or the alcohol. It's actually the dopamine that we get with it is a huge part of the addiction. So when we have ADHD, our brains is not getting the right levels of dopamine and dopamine drives everything. So that's why we struggle with procrastination and etc. And smoking weed or whatever, what that does is it gives you that huge bit of dopamine. Because if you look at ADHD tablets, they're just giving you methamphetamine or they're giving you amphetamine. It's just medical speed or medical methamphetamine. And that is because our brains are craving dopamine. So yeah, I understand that. I'm not addicted though, quit many times, it just helps me. So the fun thing with addiction is, I'm never going to sit here and promote drug use, like that's not what I'm about. But what I do is just be honest with all the training I've had. So addiction is categorized as something where it's basically you doing something harmful that feels harmful. So you recognize it's a problem and you want to stop the problem, but you can't. So if it's not something you recognize as a problem, it's actually not classed as an addiction. It's a type of, so it is Still Collins, I thought it was methamphetamine is, I'm sure there's a tablet which was methamphetamine. I could be wrong though, so thank you for correcting us if I am. I can't Google, that's a problem. Everything we Google these days, don't we? That's an addiction for me, bloody me smartphone. I'm very outgoing, 18 years with the missus, been together since 17, 2 beautiful kids, an okay job, I bought a home. This is not a boast, but I think I never really dealt with stress, luckily. Yeah, see, this is the thing, Jay, and I think it's not about boasting, it's actually really helpful because often when we look at addiction, we think that, okay, we're having this addiction for no reason. But if you compare the lives of people, I imagine, Jay, and I could be wrong, but I imagine that you've engaged with alcohol or stuff like when you were younger. Maybe not everybody does that, but a lot of people do. You get rewind. So what happens is you have a lot of people who engage in recreational drugs, or a lot of people who engage with recreational drinking when they're younger. And then what happens is some people, they go off and they can do it in moderation, it doesn't get a hook of them. And then there's a group of people who it does get a hook of them. And it's like, what's the difference? And actually, one is the group of people who don't have these lives which feel fulfilling and they feel fulfilled in them. So they haven't got, childhood traumas, or they've learned how to feel secure in relationships. They've learned how to feel secure in life. And then you've got another group of people who actually haven't had the right environment growing up, and they create the ability to create healthy connections and to feel happy and secure in life. And it's actually that needs healing. So the fact that you've got this wonderful life shows that actually maybe you've been one of the people who's got secure attachments and you've grown up in the right environment. You say you haven't had you haven't had stress, and that's set you up to live a happy, healthy life where you don't need addiction. And what this really highlights and shines a light on is it's not that people are choosing to have an addiction, it's that they don't have that same happy, healthy relationship with themselves and others that they need. You can really see a difference. You're saying you've got like really happy, healthy relationship and children. I've had really tumultuous relationships where they've been really damaging and they've been really harmful. I haven't had them happy, healthy relationships. I'm a single parent, so there's and I'm the one who's had the addiction. So one thing I've really had to learn to get over my addiction is what's going on, and that's really had to be an exploration of my childhood, of my belief systems, of looking at my mental health disorders, a lot of stuff. So that was helpful, thank you. Right. Structurally related but not the same. Right, okay, I get you. So is that the Still Collins, is that the medical grade version then? Or I'm just interested. But yeah, but thank you for correcting us. Wow, a charming lady. Is there vacancies available? Vacancies for what? I don't know what you're asking about there. Still Collins, no, you're thinking of oh yeah, you've read that one. You're writing, linking many types of addiction to trauma, etc. And then there are those who have synapse problems and don't have enough rupture of dopamine or serotonin, i.e. a mechanical issue. Yeah, this is true, but one of the things is a lot of the research out there, and there was always exceptions. This isn't everyone, and it's like trying to talk about what the research says, but not blanket it to involve everyone. But yeah, so the people, for instance, with dopamine and serotonin issues, a lot of this, is to do with things like mental health disorders, whether that's GAD, which is general anxiety disorder, depression, you've got bipolar, ADHD, BPD. All of these things tend to stem, the evidence heavily suggests stems from childhood. So we have these genes, and then these genes are activated in the environment. So you've already genetically predisposed to have these issues, which then can mean that we later go on into addiction to help it soothe these imbalances, like you said. However, it's often the environment which triggers them. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be, huge trauma, but it could be that we're just sensitive people, and our parents work a lot, so we internalize that because the society we're growing up in has a lot of demands for our parents, so our parents aren't able to be there for us in the way that we need them to, and we take that personally, and then that tends to, because we're predisposed to things like GAD or ADHD, then we start to develop these neurological issues. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. There are those neurological issues, but I'd say a high proportion of that still does stem from childhood, if you get what I'm saying. And yeah, epidemic change, the link between nature of it. Yeah, absolutely. I find it so interesting when you look at epigenic genes. You're speaking my love language here still, Collins. Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, thanks for pointing that out. I like it when people tell us where I'm going wrong, because it's always good to learn. Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting, though, when you look at addiction, and I think sometimes we put the focus on that we need to stop and we need to do this tip and this trick. And my friend actually said to us, why are you not doing more videos around addiction with techniques on how to stop addiction? And the reason why is because I don't think that one technique's going to help. and even if I put 30 techniques up, like I learned a lot of techniques, and I learned that before I actually developed my addiction. I was already training to be an addictions counsellor. And they just don't work alone, because we have to look at the root causes. And part of that is the fact that we have issues with like dopamine, and our dopamine receptors aren't quite doing what they're supposed to be doing, etc., serotonin, etc. And part of it is psychological pain, and part of it is childhood attachment styles and wounds. There's just a lot. So I just don't think a couple of tips and tricks cut it, to be honest. One thing I struggle to understand: we are all aware of the dangers and effects of more hardcore drugs like heroin and meth. How do people make the jump to taking them? So I've got I've got a really close friend who she basically didn't realise that she was doing it. She was really young. But I've got quite a few friends who've made that jump. So a thing with like crack is often what happens is you have people taking coke, and that's very more socially acceptable. It's more recreational, and then they start doing it, and you build up a tolerance. So going back to that dopamine, the more we flood our brain with dopamine, the more the dopamine receptors try to compensate for that, and they actually close down a bit. So I mean, that's a very basic way of explaining it, but yeah, basically what happens is then we build a tolerance, so then we need more and more. So a lot of people that I used to recreationally take cocaine with now take crack cocaine, because it was around a tolerance issue. But the thing with heroin, it's just your drug of choice. The thing with heroin is it actually cures pain. So we've got opiate receptors in our brain, and the thing with heroin is the opiate receptors we have in our brain is for our natural pain relief, our endorphins, and heroin provides that in abundance. So what you find is often people who are heroin addicts have experienced severe pain, and they end up taking it because they're in that much pain. So there's the largest study ever done on drugs looked at heroin users, and it was like 20,000+ heroin users, so it was huge. And what they found was that 2/3 of them had experienced childhood, and I'm not going to say the word, but a specific type of child abuse, which, I mean, all children shouldn't experience abuse, but this is the most severe type. I hope you can understand what that is. But obviously I'm on live. So they've experienced this type of abuse, 2/3, and nearly all of the heroin users have experienced some kind of child abuse. So it's not about like, oh, why would you not use that? Why would you use that when you know it's so bad? Like if you've had that much level of abuse, and then you're presented with something which actually numbs that because of the pain receptors. You know, it's a recipe for disaster. And part of the thing with heroin is as well is you don't generally go in with injecting heroin. So actually you start off chasing the dragon, which doesn't look as bad. So you're like, oh, well, these people are chasing the dragon, which is actually on a bit of tin foil, and you're doing it you're smoking heroin first, basically. And they're like, oh, well, that's not what you would think a heroin addict would be like. And we have this idea of what a heroin addict looks like, very stereotypical. And you're seeing people and you're like, well, actually, they don't look like that. And they're doing it more recreationally, so maybe it's not that bad. So there's a lot of reasons why people would go into using hard drugs, but I don't think it's as straightforward. Yeah. Growing up in an environment where you encounter it socially helps normalize harder substances. Yeah, and it also there's the gateway theory. Sil Collins. Hi, Noradini. I don't know how you say that. I'm dyslexic. Yeah, there's the gateway theory, which is if you start to take one drug, you're more likely to go into another. So I have a friend who started off doing cocaine. He then went into doing crack cocaine because of his tolerance, and then started using heroin to come down from the crack cocaine. So he never had the intention. He would have been very much of the thought, oh, I'll never take crack and heroin, until he's taken crack and heroin, you know. Because he's already got a cocaine addiction by this point, and it's like a gateway. Once you do one, the next one doesn't feel as bad. Yeah, let's go through some of these comments though. So, is it as simple as people looking for the next big high, or an act of desperation? Jay, what do you mean? Do you mean when people are you answering the question about why people go on to hard drugs? Because if you are, yeah, I think that's basically what I've just said. You've said it in a nutshell. I could have just done with reading that comment and saying, yeah, what he said. Or are you talking about something different? August, haven't had sugar in 15 days. That was a big addiction I had to get over. Well, friggin' done. It was a huge addiction that I had to get over. I mean, it wasn't the hardest addiction I've had to get over. That was definitely my drug addiction. But it was certainly hard because it's everywhere. And this is where I always feel sorry for people who have alcohol addiction. I've intermittently had alcohol addiction, but it's not been my thing of choice that's like really hooked us in, and I've been addicted to it for years. But it must be so hard because it's everywhere. And that's the thing with sugar, it's everywhere. And, you know, it's so easy. And as soon as every time I'll stop taking sugar, and every time I feel much better, the weight drops off, I feel great, my skin gets better, I feel like I've got more energy. And then I'm like, oh, just have one chocolate bar, just have one muffin. And then I'm knee deep in the bloody addiction again. So I've just had to say, no, it's not happening. It is an addiction. You know, it really is. But it's just, we don't see it as bad as other addictions. But right, let's see what else. Yeah, 100% agree with that. Still Collins. Agree that it's always childhood experience that created the pattern. Sometimes even the behaviours of ancestors affect us. 100%. It's just generational cycles. I know that I've got an addiction, but I know why I've got the addiction, and I can literally trace it back 3 generations of trauma that's been passed down. And, you know, I can understand why I had an addiction, and it's not just me. I can understand what's happened. It's just generational trauma. And unfortunately, or unfortunately, or fortunately, I think the people who's alive today, especially, you know, your millennials and your Gen X and some boomers, we're really being faced with having to deal with this generational trauma, and it's quite painful. But addiction is rife, and that is part of it. That's the way that we've been dealing with this generational trauma, is alcohol and addiction, and now we're saying, okay, right, let's deal with it in a different way, because we're learning so much more with access to social media and internet. We're learning a lot more about, okay, actually we are traumatized as a society. We really are a traumatized society, and this is not just in this generation. This has been going on for generation after generation, and we're getting the tools to be able to heal that. And it's promising, because it means that we can get away from addiction, because we're learning how to learn what's going on inside and heal that. And it is really promising, but it's bloody brutal. Let's see what else other people are saying. I've got quite a few comments here. Your doctor? No, I was doing my doctorate, and I actually stopped because I was doing too much. I became a single mom in the middle of doing my doctorate in psychology and addiction, actually. And I ended up thinking, like, I'm just running myself into the ground here. Who am I doing it for? So no, I'm not a doctor. I've got a lot of letters next to my name, but I just felt like that was unnecessary letters. Ratty, I'm not going to say that name. Hi, Ratty. How do you get over an addiction that's messing up your life, but at the core you still don't want to? Very good question. Don't want rock bottom. Oh, right, okay. Wait, let's see. Ratty, do you mean that you don't want to stop, or you don't want to hit rock bottom? Clear that up, because they're two very different answers. Prashant, Patty, ever encountered a tobacco addiction related person? Yeah. Addiction's all the same. Like, addiction addiction's all the same across the board. We all have different vices, but the addiction is the same, and it's the same. They fit into the same reasons why. They have the same chemical reactions in our brains. It's all the same. So yeah, I have encountered people with a tobacco related addiction. Yeah. I think the thing with tobacco is it's different. So there's three things which are different to other addictions, which is harder to get away from, and that's heroin, alcohol, and tobacco. They're all physically addictive, so they're chemically addictive as well as psychologically addictive. So that's a different barrier that you've got to push through, which makes it really hard. But other than that, they're very similar. Jihad, hello, love your accent. Question, is therapy the only path for healing child trauma, or do you recommend other pathways? I think healing child's trauma, and this is something I've had to heal. I've had to heal a lot of trauma, in fact. PTSD from just a lot of trauma, different types of abuse and stuff. And the way that I see it is that you need to attack it from all angles. So yeah, you can do therapy. I think that's great. Therapy's great to help you understand your trauma. That's a great starting place. Understanding the trauma is great. But if you think of it like mind, body, soul. So soul, I'm not going to get like all woo-woo on you. I am spiritual, but I'm not going to get woo-woo. But soul is all about, like, for me, connectivity. So it's about connecting with other people. Maybe that's connecting with like-minded people, being a part of something. So being in just connecting with humanity. So that might look like having little chats with your neighbours. Like, I'm doing some bloody thing for the community centre next month, stuff like that. So like being a part of humanity, or that might be being spiritual, but that like just something that's bigger than you. So that's the first thing. So try and be of service. That's so helpful for our brains. Mind, so that's your therapies, that's your self-help, that's like exploring yourself, that's like reading things like Attached, that's reading books like The Body Keeps the Score. That's an amazing book for trauma, by the way, which takes us into the next thing, is body. So The Body Keeps the Score really talks about this, and it's like it's a key book in the therapy industry, because it's all about trauma, and it's everything we know about trauma comes from this and somebody called Peter Levine. But basically what they both say is we can heal the mind as much as we want, the therapies, but our bodies are going to go into fight or flight. Our bodies are going to be reactive. So you're not going to be able to heal that childhood trauma if you don't heal your body. So that's somatic healing. So there's lots of things on somatic healing. There's things like tapping. If you're more spiritual, you can do like Reiki and stuff like that. There's EMDR. There's loads of things, but if you really wanted to look into it, I would say The Body Keeps the Score if you read. But if not, if you don't read, ask ChatGPT some somatic healing techniques that come from that book. Hope that was helpful. But I really think self-love is key as well. You have to learn to love yourself, because often when we're traumatized as children, we take that personally, like we're not lovable. We are the problem, because that's the way all children are narcissists, and I don't mean in a bad way, but we're all the center of our own little universe, and we think everything revolves around us, and we think everything happens because of us. So self-love, just practicing self-love every day, is really healing for childhood trauma as well. I hope that was helpful. Hi, how are you? I understand English, but I not speak. Oh, that's okay. Please help how I speak in fluent. I mean, you're probably not on the right live if you want to speak fluent English. I'm a Geordie. I don't speak fluent English myself. Even people in English, people struggle to understand us at times, let alone teaching someone. You'd be better off going to another live. You can have a laugh though. You can learn how not to speak. How are you? I'm good, thanks. Very good. Look, pet, I'm off. Oh, see you later. No, I don't know if you've already went. Don't really want to stop. Scared that rock bottom is the only thing that will cause me to stop, but it'll be horrid. So that's a hard one, because Ratty's saying that you don't really want to stop. Scared that rock bottom is the only thing that will cause me to stop, but it'll be horrid. Sometimes you've got to let the shit hit the fan. Why do you not want to stop as well? Like, is it causing issues in your life? Is it causing damage in your life? Because, you know, it's not an addiction unless it's a problem. Is it something that you can't stop, or is it that you don't want to? Because it's like very nuanced. But if it's, say, something that you're in a position where you are damaging relationships and you don't like what's happening off the back of the addiction, but you just don't want to stop, the one thing that you can do is motivational interviewing. Is it that you want to stop, but that you're feeling resistance? Because if that's the case, motivational interviewing can be a really great type of therapy for you. If it's that I enjoy it, I don't want to stop, but I'm being told I need to stop and I have no intention, then that's a different situation. You know, it's all very like, it's very nuanced. It's hard to do it off a couple of messages compared to if I was working with you. Right, here's a hard question. Do you think recreational drug use and legalization, less hardcore drugs, is a positive? I believe in decriminalisation. And if Jay, have you looked at into Portugal and what they do? Which, if you haven't, it's fantastic. So what Portugal do is they had a horrendous drug problem. So what they just drug problem. So what they did is they got a panel of like the most the most renowned people who knew this stuff around addiction, and what they said was like, look, there's an issue here. So they basically decided, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to decriminalize all drugs. And what we're going to do is we're going to help people who are in addiction, instead of punishing them, putting them in the criminal justice system. What we're going to do is we're going to support them. We're going to help them feel integrated into society. We're going to offer them rehabs and the right counselling and stuff, but we're also going to give them sense of purpose and help them feel connected and help them get back to their lives. So again, it's like that 360 degree of attacking addiction. Like, we're going to attack it from all angles, and we're going to treat it like a welfarist issue, not blame the individual, which is what we do, the war on drugs. So I don't know about legalization. I've done a lot of research myself around the around decriminalisation. And I believe in that. Don't be a victim of your history. Wipe the slate clean. Give yourself a chance to be free by changing. Yeah, I love that advice. Yesterday's already happened. I think one of the things that I struggled with was the shame of the addiction and the identity that I had as an addict. I was like no longer a person, I was an addict. I was this dirty little addict, and I had so much shame around it, and I just had to not be a victim of it and wipe the slate clean and give myself some grace and give myself permission to let go of the shame. So I love that. Try your hardest for 4 days and you'll be so proud of yourself. You'll keep going. Yeah, I love that. The first, with addiction, there's the big 3 threes. So I was thinking the first 3 days is the hardest physically. It's the most intense cravings. Then the first 3 weeks, you've got 0 dopamine, so you just feel like crap. So that's your next trap that you're going to fall into, relapse in them 3 weeks. So just keep pushing through, reminding yourself this is a dopamine issue. Try and get dopamine from healthier sources, like maybe you go to the gym, or maybe you go for long walks in nature, or whatever it is. Get some dopamine in your system where you can. But remember, your dopamine receptors need to reset, which is now went from being flooded with dopamine from the drugs or alcohol or gambling or whatever, to now getting 0. So the first 3 weeks, you're going to feel like crap, really low. Just try and remember that. And then after 3 weeks, your dopamine receptors start to recalibrate. And then by 3 months, the cravings should die down enough so that they're manageable. So 3-3-3, get through those 3 milestones, and just every day that it's a win. Like, remind yourself this is a bloody win. You're doing absolutely amazing. But really key to this is self-love and compassion. Do something for yourself every single day that shows you that you love yourself. Maybe that's journaling a nice letter to yourself, or writing a letter to a future self of when you think that they might be struggling. Maybe it's going in a nice bath with candles if you're a girl, or hanging out with some friends, or just something. Make sure you're just loving yourself. It's so important. If you keep rewinding and playing, it ends up being a learned behaviour. 100%. So true. I agree with that. And we are habitual animals. Like, our brains love autopilot. Atomic Habits is really good. Have you read that book, Tassie Jo? Very in line with what you're saying. And it's actually really good for addiction as well. Atomic Habits is a really great book for if you want to overcome addiction. Still trying to get through these messages. Quite a lot. Yeah, we are right. I'm going to read through and I'm going to see if there's anything, any questions. I want, right, so I'm just taking a second to read through them and then I'm going to see which ones, because if there's any people who's actively struggling with addiction, I'll try and go that first and then go back through the other messages. Right, okay, so we're gonna go. So, Hung Bunny, I want to stop, I just relapse when the shit hits the fan. Yeah, so that is so common, and that is going back to that. Are you loving yourself, like doing that healing work? So part of it is building your resilience. If you think about addiction as a coping mechanism, so sometimes what we can do is we can change the external stuff and we can get rid of the addiction, but then when shit hits the fan, we feel triggered and we're going straight back into relapse. And that's because we've got it's an inside job. We need to do some stuff inside, we need to do some healing inside, we need to take inventory of our environment. Have we got helpful, supportive people around us to help me navigate through these times when shit hits the fan? Am I building up my resilience, which is building up self-love and just building up this capacity to say, you know, whatever it is, I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna have my own back. And part of that is celebrating the wins, when really celebrating the fact that you're getting to that point where where you have stopped, and being so incredibly kind to yourself and saying you are some boy every day, because it's given this subliminal message to our brains that you are resilient. And like, you've got this, like you are capable. And it's also about recognizing that we have triggers, and it's about what can we do to manage those triggers. So when shit's hitting the fan, like, is it that you're surrounding yourself around people who are constantly throwing shit to the fan? Because then it's like a case of like, right, I need to be more boundaried because I know that's a trigger. Or is it that I don't know, whatever kind of shit's hitting the fan, look at how can I build resilience around that? And also, are you doing the inner work to love yourself? Because that's going to be so crucial to sustaining recovery. But if you want to give a bit more detail on that, might be helpful. Tassie Joe, I have schizophrenia, post PTSD, previously addiction of all kind. I've been on the ketogenic diet, staying away from stress, and I've reduced all my medication apart from one. Very similar to my situation, actually, Tessie Joe. Very aligned. I do fasting instead of ketogenic diet, which is very similar. I really focus on health. But I don't have schizophrenia. I have bipolar, PTSD, ADHD, autism, full bag. full line would get bingo. Bandicoot, what if you relapse after a big streak? Do your dopamine receptors rewire and start from scratch? It depends how big the relapse is. So if you have a mini lapse, your dopamine receptors, it will try and recalibrate. So what goes up must come down is because it tries to recalibrate. However, it's kind of like scales. So you'll feel a come down or you'll feel a low, and it can be there and very easy to continue and go back into the addiction that way. In terms of our dopamine receptors, so what happens is the two receptors like this, and they have like little tiny kind of holes, and the dopamine goes between the receptors. And what happens is it fills up the holes, like our body kind of fills up some of the holes, so there's not as many holes for the dopamine to go through, so it tries to block it that way. And obviously that needs to recalibrate. So it depends how long you're relapsing for. If you just because there's lapse and then there's relapse. If you're lapsing and that's just for, a few days, then you'll be fine. And if it's relapsing where it's, we're doing it for a long period of time again, then you're probably going to be in the same boat. This is why it's important to recognize the difference between a lapse and a relapse. And because often when I've relapsed, I've been like, oh my God, I've relapsed, I've done it. And then I'm kind of giving myself permission now just to be an addict until I decide I can do it again. But actually a lapse is like, okay, I fell off the wagon. That's not great. But like, I've got a chance to pick myself back up again before it turns into a relapse. And doing that is so much more helpful to say, like, look, like, I've got a chance to pick it back up. Like, my dopamine's not going to be screwed again. I'm going to feel rubbish for a few days, fair play. But I know how to get myself through this because I've already dealt with recovery before. I'm just going to pick myself back up and I'm going to praise myself for doing that. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful. First time in 15 years, finally being on my own again. At the moment, I've been in a good place. I love that for you. Really love that for you. Yeah, I'm on my own. I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. It'd take a lot for me to live with somebody. Like, I wouldn't say never, but it would have to be a lot for us to live with somebody again. Build at school when you were happy about the world. I was built at school when you were... I don't know what that means, Imran. I don't know if I'm just missing. Sleep is so important. Yeah, Tessie Joe, me and you. Speak my love language. Yeah, sleep. I'm obsessed with my gut microbiome. Sleep I really struggle with, I've got to admit, but I try my best with it. I'm so much better than I was, mind, but I do struggle. But yeah, it's all about gut microbiome. This is what I say, like, when I was talking to somebody about childhood trauma and I was talking about mind, body, soul, like, your body's not just doing somatic stuff, but also, like, how are you looking after your body? Because you've got a lot of anxiety and everything comes from our guts. I'm getting a bit tired now, guys, though, so I'm gonna look at one more thing, and I'll answer one thing and then I'm gonna go. I try to get through everyone, but I'm lagging. Yeah, listen to the audio book, The Body Keeps the Score. And another one is Atomic Habits. I don't know who that was. It's brilliant, that Body Keeps the Score, mind. And it's actually, I don't think there's a therapist who hasn't read it. If they have they need to. But right, let's see one last thing I'm trying to say. So I've got Mick... Chin up, Kenny. Don't get... Who's Kenny? What's Kenny saying? I can't get girls. That's a hard one because I think... Do you know... I think it is hard, but do you know... What I think that girls don't get enough. This is just my opinion. This is not counselling, by the way. This is not counselling. Well, I will say, as a girl myself, this is from girl myself. Confidence is so attractive. Like, it doesn't matter what somebody looks like. It doesn't matter where they're from. Anything. If someone's confident, that's attractive. And I imagine you notice that about girls as well. Like, if a girl's confident, like, you're authentic. You become a bit more cheeky, you're a bit more, like, got something about you because you're confident in yourself and you're authentic. So I'd really start working on your confidence levels, bigging yourself up, looking at what your strengths are, where you shine, and just, like, really start to be, like, walk around. One thing I did, I started, like, walking around, like, with my posture. So I paid attention to my posture. I used to be like this. That's another thing for Body Keeps the Score. So I was really hunched over and I was lacking confidence, and your body gives a feedback, like a biofeedback loop from your body to your brain. And your brain can say, I feel anxious or insecure, which makes your body like that. But if your body opens up and stands in a posture which is in line with feeling secure in yourself and feeling like I'm the bee's knees, that actually sends a signal to your brain. So you might have heard of power poses and stuff like that. So start walking around like you're the bee's knees, Kenny, head up. Walk around like you can get girls, first of all. Second of all, start working on your confidence, like I said. Just learn to love yourself no matter what. I focus on the things that you bring to the table. If you don't know what you bring to the table, ask loved ones, what's the 3 best things that you think about me? And remind yourself of that on the daily. You know, funny or kind, really caring, I'm empathetic. I've got all these great traits. Everybody's got great traits, but we focus on the negative. If it's something around appearance, what I used to do is focus on how the things I didn't like, and instead of the things I did like. So there's a great example of this. Of my weight used to yo-yo because I've got bipolar and, like I said, the sugar addiction. So my weight would yo-yo, and when I was bigger, I used to sit there and go, oh, I hate my belly and my thighs are horrible. And then when I would lose weight, I would be like, oh, I hate my bum and my boobs. They were much better when I was bigger. And what I realised was, hang on a minute, you're never going to be happy with yourself. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're thin or you're bigger, you're always finding something to pick on. So instead, what I started doing was, when I was bigger, I thought, like, great, you've got great boobs and great bum, instead of focusing on my thighs and my belly. And when I was thin, I was like, wow, you've got abs and your legs look fantastic. So I started focusing on the positive, and I started doing this on my face. Like, instead of picking on myself for, like, not having the best skin or looking older or whatever, I was like, no, you've got really pretty eyes, you've got a nice smile. And I would say this in the mirror to us every single day. And now I walk around and I genuinely do love myself. You know, everybody's got positives, whether that's physically, but most importantly, because I think physicalities aren't important, we don't, what's important is our personalities. And we've all got great traits, but I was just mentioning the physical because that's something that I dealt with, and it can cause insecurities. So yeah, so focus, start bigging yourself up instead of putting yourself down. Be confident, posture. And the other thing is, I'm dating a lad now, and he's really confident, and he just approached us, and it wasn't in like a kind of sleazy way, just like we were like in a somewhere we're in a food place, and he just came and like beelined, I didn't realize this, but stood next to us in the queue and just started chatting. And then we just ended up chatting, and then it like was a vibe, and then it just naturally, we ended up like having a little bit of a flirt, and it was just very natural and authentic. So saying you struggle with girls, I think we put too much emphasis on apps. And actually, I think it's just great to be confident, to go out and just to naturally try and talk to people. And it doesn't need to be seedy or sleazy. It could just be like, I don't know, you're in a queue next to somebody and you're like, hi, all right? Or, yeah, I don't know, start going, it's find something you enjoy. Like maybe you enjoy, I don't know, art, go to an art group. And if you can go to a female dominated place, even better. I go to jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, I'm not single, but I said to my single friend, I was like, you need to get yourself to jiu-jitsu. It's like, I'm the only girl there. Like, if you're single, go to a male dominated place and you're a girl, or go to a female dominated place if you're a boy. And with something you enjoy though, or something you want to try. So maybe go to an art group, and then you can naturally create connections. But confidence is key. And like Mick said, keep your chin up. Don't chase girls, let them chase you. Yeah, but I think you need to pursue girls. You don't run. I think I agree with what you're saying. Don't chase. Don't ever chase, but pursue, healthily pursue. Girls will let you know if they're interested, but put yourself in a position to find out if they're interested. That's what I was saying. Like go and just casually talk to girls in organic settings. Like if you sat on the bus, talk to the person next to you on the bus. Yeah. Right. That was the last thing. I can see there's loads of yeah. I see there's loads of comments. Just don't walk around like Liam Gallagher, that's too confident. I don't know, like, people like a bad boy or a mean girl. I think that's because they're walking around like Liam Gallagher. Just be kind. Walk around. I'll walk around like I am the shit, but I'm also really kind. And I've done a lot of work on myself, so like I can back up the fact that I am the shit. Do you know what I mean? Look, and I remember somebody said to us on a date, God, you're humble, aren't you? Joking. I was like, I've been humbled my entire life. Don't you worry. This is my not being humble era. I'm walking around like I'm God's gift, because I am. I am. I'm not perfect, but I'm bloody well try. So like that's good enough for me. The two books are The Body Keeps the Score and Atomic Habits, and they're both brilliant. One's for trauma and childhood, and the Atomic Habits, is around changing habits and growth mindset. It's brilliant for addiction. It's not focused on addiction, but it's brilliant for addiction. I used a lot of it because I do an addiction course and I reference it a lot. But yeah, it's just a great bloody book in general. But I am going to have to go. I know people have commented and I've not got round to it, but I'm really tired. I've not fast, so I need to eat. And if you'd like to join again tomorrow, I'm on at 10:10 every day. I was 5 minutes late every weekday, 10:10. And I do a podcast with my friend, a live podcast on YouTube on Sundays called Sunday Service of Addiction, with my friend who is so inspirational. She's fantastic, and we spoke about hard drugs. She's managed to overcome hard drugs, and wow, what a woman. So she's got a different perspective on addiction to me. And we do the live YouTube every Sunday, and we have a Q&A bit at the end, so feel free to come to that. And that's 11:11, because I love a good number. I'm spiritual in numbers and numerology, so 10:10's change, so that's why I do that on every weekday, in 11:11 alignment. But I'm gonna let you go. It's been really nice talking to you. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I've learned some stuff myself, so that's great. Good luck with girls though. Good luck with girls. Who is it? Was it Mike? Mick. You've got this. You've got it. Just pretend to be the bee's knees until you bloody know you're the bee's knees. I lost connection yesterday. I was enjoying the convo. Did you look up Savannah Marshall? No, but I'm just about to leave, so I'll go and look up Savannah Marshall now. I'll be on again tomorrow at 10:10, like 10 minutes past 10. So I'll see you then, but I'm going to have to go. I am starving. I'll look up Savannah Marshall though. Bye.